This is Colin Cattell with Palisade Radio. On the line with us today is Edward Kelly, CEO and Director of Inca One Resources. Inca One Resources is a gold ore processing company in Peru. Edward, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Colin.
You come from a diverse background which included working with software-based companies, food franchising, and resource companies. Now you're working on a gold ore processing company in Peru. Can you start off by defining an ore processing company and toll milling for that matter?
Yeah, sure. I've been working in the resource sector now probably for the coming up past 5 years, working with public companies for just over 10 years. And Inca One, we're an ore processing company, gold ore processing, and we buy ore from mining companies from all over Peru, which are approved by the government. And Inca One processes the ore and then sells the gold on the world market.
And what is toll milling?
Toll milling is a little bit different. It's typically what you'll find down in Peru with the artisanal miners when they take their ore to a toll miller. Toll miller will process their ore for them and charge them a fee and give them their gold back and or buy their gold from them in a matter of, say, 20 to 30 days. Inca One, the way we're set up and can have a competitive advantage is we take on the risk of the metallurgy, figure that out, and then pay for the ore, buy the ore from them right up front, and keep the gold ourselves, take possession of the gold, and then sell it in the matter of, say, 30 days.
Many investors are unfamiliar with the mining industry in Peru. I traveled to Peru about 8 years ago and ventured up the Amazon, and along the way we encountered at least 5 gold mining operations right in the middle of the river. They were all very small, of course, but the entire country has something like 30,000 mines. Can you describe the nature of mining in Peru?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Mining now in rivers in Peru is completely illegal. Government passed a law over 2 years ago on that, and any companies that are caught mining in rivers now are completely shut down and destroyed. And in April of 2012, the government decided to formalize the small-scale mining sector. How they categorize and define small-scale mining in Peru is anything under 350 tons per day. And especially in the small-scale mining space in gold, let me tell you, it's not as much a small business, but it's a big business in Peru. And you have to kind of look back at it and see how Peru has evolved over the last few decades. It wasn't just a short time ago that they had a couple of lost decades of foreign investment, and then back that was in the 70s and 80s. And back in the mid-90s, foreign investment, due to some government changes and policies, started flowing back into the country. And primarily all this foreign investment has flowed into the large-scale mining sector. And it's obviously a multi-billion-dollar industry down there. And the small-scale mining industry now is what the government's focusing on and cleaning up. Just 2 years ago, the government decided to formalize this. The main reason that was driving it is they figured out that it was a multi-billion-dollar industry in gold alone. They were losing over $500 million in tax revenues and decided to formalize it. And they put out, just in April of 2012, they said, okay, you got 2 years to be able to formalize. You've got 6 months to apply for a formalization number. And during that time, there were actually 77,000 mines that applied. These are small mines, but there were 77,000 that actually applied for a carte de compromiso, which is just a formalization number saying that you would legalize in the next 2 years. And so it's been interesting. It is a large sector, over 77,000 mines, and those are the ones that actually applied. So I was actually in the government's office meeting with the Ministry of Energy and Mines and the Vice Minister, and we asked him if there were 77,000 mines that applied, how many didn't apply, and his answer was they really don't know. It's in the hundreds of thousands.
Wow, that's a remarkable number. A few years ago, a company called Dynacor, which is a fairly well-known name, entered into the gold ore processing business. While the majority of resource stocks have been on the decline the last 2 to 3 years, Dynacor's share price has been absolutely explosive. What about Peru's mining industry makes a company like Dynacor so successful?
Well, I think you have to look at just over the past couple of years, and you're right, Dynacor has been a very successful story in Peru. And if you look at their chart, they're probably one of the only gold companies, whether it be in the junior or senior space, that's had a reverse to 99.9% of the other companies out there. But it all comes down to what investors are looking for right now, I believe, and that's generating cash flow. And that's what separates them and us, for that matter now, from our peers. Generating, in Peru, you can generate a great super cash flow in a short period of time. And in the junior space, the majority of companies don't have that ability with the projects they have or in the jurisdictions they're in to be able to generate a cash flow or even a near-term cash flow for that matter. And because we're focusing on, and same as Dynacor, they've really focused on high grade, which allows you to be able to have low tonnage, which means low capex, and that, in the near term, that generates profits with a low capex and ability to process.
Dynacor was the first mover into the space, as far as I know, and Inca One is really the second significant ore processor to market in Peru. Another one that's just entering the space is Standard Tolling, and I'm sure there will be several others to follow. With over 100,000 mines in Peru, how big is the opportunity for the gold ore processing before the market becomes saturated?
Well, it's a big market. Nobody really knows how big it is. But it's, Peru is a very well mineralized country. And you can do it, the miners can do it fairly easy to be able to mine at or near surface with the oxide materials. And as you said, and we talked about, there's literally hundreds of thousands of mines. And take a look at the market. I mean, it's stated by the government that it's a $2 billion market just in the gold sector alone. And that's what the government's reported. If you talk to others in other reports, it's 3 or 4 billion. But just using on the government numbers, if you work the numbers backwards, at say $1,250 an ounce gold, what they reported earlier was that there's about 1.6 million ounces of gold a year that's leaving the country illegally with no taxes being paid on it. And take a look at that in tonnage. The small scale sector, they won't touch anything under half ounce per ton is what they process. So you work those numbers backwards, you're coming up with about 3.2 million tons of ore that needs to be processed per year. And quite frankly, we would be happy with just 10% of the market, and that would get us up to 1,000 tons per day. And we'd have a very significant company with a large market cap at that point. There's still room for, and I believe more companies will come. Like if we're talking only 10% of the market that we're looking for at 1,000 tons per day. There are Peruvian ones there, but the standards are getting higher, and I think you're going to see more and more foreign companies coming in and looking at this market.
Inca One is currently processing 25 tons per day at its facility. The company just announced a financing to expand the mill to 100 tons per day, and that's about $5.8 million that you've just raised in a debt facility. What amount of gold do you expect to process for the first year once that upgrade occurs, and what are plans for the future expansion?
Yeah, okay. That's at 100 tons per day, we're looking at, just with comparable numbers in the marketplace and with grades that we're looking at basing our forecasts off. We've kind of done a conservative and more aggressive one at a half ounce per ton, which is what we've been doing our test milling at. We believe at 100 tons per day, we'll be in the neighborhood of around 18 to 20,000 ounces of gold per year. And as we increase our grades, we'll be in the neighborhood of around 25 to 28,000 ounces of gold per year. We don't plan just to be at 100 tons per day. We plan to have this plant that can be expanded up to 350 tons per day under the small-scale mining sector. And we plan to get it ramped up in the next, say, 18 months after we've completed the first phase of upgrades up to 100 tons. To get it up, we want to be running at around 250 tons per day. And then look for additional plants and have 4 plants in total running at 250 tons per day to get us to that 1,000 tons.
Ed, thanks so much for joining us and educating our listeners on the Peruvian mining industry. I think Inca One's going to get real exciting here, and it's one of my largest holdings by far. So I hope all the best moving forward.
Thanks very much for your time today, Colin. Nice talking to you.